Good morning, dear students. I am Ms. Navida Sheikh from Brahan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika MCGM virtual class. I welcome all my dear students to another and interesting session. In today's session, we'll be learning something new and interesting from a science textbook. So let's get started. Good morning, dear students. I welcome all my dear students to another and interesting session. I am Ms. Navida Sheikh from MCGM virtual class. Today's class is for standard 6 science, and the topic today we'll be continuing is substances in surrounding, their states and properties, part 2. In our previous class, we've already learned about what is the meaning of substances, what are the different states of matter that are there known to us, and we also learned a few properties like what is melting, what is boiling, what is the meaning of sublimation. Okay, so we have learned all this in our previous class. And in today's class, we'll be learning something new and interesting about the properties. So let's get started. Now, if I ask you a question, how will you identify the following? Now, if you have a glass, whether it is made up of plastic, steel or glass, how will you identify it? Okay, you will see a rod, whether it is of iron or aluminium. If you see a door, whether it is a wooden door or a glass door. A white powder, it could be salt or chalk powder. So the answer to all these questions that we have is you consider their properties. Example, if you see that whether the glass you can see through it, whether it is transparent, whether it is very hard to bend it or to mold it in any other shape, what is the color of that particular given object, how does it produce sound, whether it is soluble in water, etc. So these are called as the properties of the substances. Substances can be identified by studying their properties. They can be put to use according to their properties. Okay, so studying the properties helps us to understand about the substance much better, and then we could easily study it according to the properties known. So it is important for us to understand the properties of the substances so that we could study more about them. Okay, so let's get started with the properties of substances. Now, if you see here, you see a glass is breaking, or you might see chalk break. Okay, आप लोग इन क्लास में देखे होंगे ना chalk टूटते हुए when your teachers are writing on the board. Or suppose if you have a glass, if you have a glass which is made up of glass, not plastic, or a bowl, glass bowl, or a glass plate, if it falls from a height, what happens to it? It tends to break, right? So any substances which breaks into small pieces or particles, such substances are said to be brittle. This property of substance is called brittleness. जो भी चीज अगर टूटती है तो उसे हम लोग कहते हैं brittle है वो, and that is the reason we pack the things like crockery which is made up of glass, and we write that handle with care, or it is marked as brittle, means it can easily break. ठीक है, तो कोई भी सब्सटेंस जो इजीली ब्रेक हो जाता है उसे हम लोग ब्रिटल सब्सटेंस कहते हैं, या फिर जो प्रॉपर्टी है उसे हम लोग कहते हैं ब्रिटलनेस. Okay, so here in this picture you see the man is hammering. Here you see this man is jumping over a sheet, metal sheet I would say. Now if this man is jumping over it and if you are hammering it, means if it is not breaking. In the previous example we saw that easily things would break are called as brittle. But these objects on which they are jumping or which they are hammering are not breaking easily. That is because of the hardness of the substance. The hardness of the substance is determined by how much resistance it offers to the substance being pushed through it. मतलब कितनी ताकत लगा रहे हैं हम लोग और कितने डिफिकल्टी से वो चीज़ अंदर पेनिट्रेट होगी, या फिर वो here you can see how this man is trying to jump but doesn't have any effect on the sheet that is there. Okay, because it is very hard. So this is another property of the substance that is. Next is, here you can see that the honey is flowing. At the same time you can see water also flows. So the liquid, normally we talk about liquids, flow downward on a sloping surface. This property is called fluidity. The fluidity of any liquid is determined by how easily it flows. ठीक है, तो कितने easily वो flow होगा, that is known as it depends upon object to object. Here you can see the honey, it is flowing at a much slower rate as compared to the water which is flowing. Water is flowing much faster. ठीक है, it depends upon the property of that particular object or anything that is there, material that is given to us. So the liquid which flows downwards on a sloping surface, that is called as fluidity. Now here you see this boy is trying to push the ball with his leg, and you see that the ball compresses. Okay. Now this compression and relaxation, you also see it in rubber bands. So if you have a rubber band and this or a sponge, if you try to pull them or if you try to compress them, they will go back to their original shape, right? Some substances change their shape when a force is applied on them but return to their original shape. Like here you can see a rubber band being pulled, and once it is released back, it comes back to its original shape and size when the force is removed. So this property is called as elasticity. What is it called? It is called as elasticity. Here you see that there are various liquids which are added in this glass, and in the glass now there are different solid substances which are being added, like a nut bolt, a grape or a cap. Okay, and if you notice they have different levels of settling. ठीक है, सब liquids एक साथ settle नहीं हो रहे, एक साथ mix नहीं हो रहे. Whereas if you talk about the solid substances like the cap or the nut of the any object that is there, or if you see a grapes which is being dropped into it, so we have already learned about what is the meaning of mass. ठीक है, the mass of different substances having the same volume can be different. मतलब अगर हमारे पास कोई एक ऑब्जेक्ट है, लाइक इफ यू हैव टू लिक्विड्स, उसके इफ इवन इफ दे आर ऑफ द सेम अमाउंट, ठीक है, सेम अमाउंट का हम लोग ने लिया है, 5 ml ये भी 5 ml वो भी, बट उसका जो मास है, मतलब जितना उसका जो उसके अंदर जितने भी पार्टिकल्स प्रेजेंट है, डिपेंडिंग अपॉन दैट, okay, that is called as the density of that object given to you. So this difference is because of the difference in the densities. So between substances of the same volume, the ones with greater density are heavier than those of the lesser density. You could try this at home also. Take a spoon of honey and take one spoon of don't take one spoon, take tablespoons. Okay, so if you add water to it, you will notice that honey settles down and on top you will see water. Okay, why is it happening? Because the density of honey is much more, and that is why it settles down. Now another example that we have here is if you have water and if you put sugar in it and if you try to shake it, okay, means if you see after some time you will notice that the sugar has completely dissolved. So this property of a substance of getting dissolved is called its solubility. Okay, so this is called as solubility. अगर कोई भी substance easily dissolve हो जाता है, completely dissolve हो जाता है, तो हम लोग उसे कहते हैं that property is called solubility. Now, if you see this building, you will see that it is. You can see each and every room in this building. You can see through it, and the people inside also can see outside. Why? Because the walls which are made up of glass, and you can see through it. Same way, if you're wearing spectacles, you must have noticed that you can see through a substance ऑन दी अदर साइड. ठीक है, हमारी आंख के ऊपर चश्मा होने के बावजूद भी हम लोगों को सामने का आराम से दिख जाता है. नाउ दैट टाइप ऑफ सब्सटेंस आर सेड टू बी ट्रांसपेरेंट. ठीक है, सेम वे इट गोज फॉर ग्लास और द स्लाइडिंग्स दैट यू हैव इन द हाउस. इफ दे आर ट्रांसपेरेंट means if you can see things outside and the outside person can see the things inside, that type of substances are called as transparent substance, and the property of the substance is called as transparency. Now we move on to the next part of the chapter, that is metals. We have learned about copper, brass, gold, silver. These are all called come under metals. So substances like copper, gold, iron, aluminium are called metals. Metals are found in the form of minerals deep inside the earth. So minerals from the earth's crust are processed to obtain the metals. In daily life, metals have various importance and uses. We'll be learning about that later on. Now let's talk about the properties of the metals. The very first and interesting property is called malleability. Means if you can hammer any substances into thin sheet, that property is called as malleability. Let's have an example about how this property works. Now, if I have an aluminium block with me and if I try to beat it with the help of a hammer, so this aluminium block will now turn into a plain flat surface. Okay? So the property of metals by which they can be beaten into thin sheet is called as malleability. The shape of the iron nail and the aluminium wire changes on beating. If they were beaten harder, then they could be changed into sheets. Like silver and aluminium foil sheets, materials like coal, wood, and pencil lead do not show this property. Hence, they are called as non-metal. Now here, if you see the silver foil that you'll eat on the various sweets that you get, okay, and here you can see the gold foil also. Now anything that can be hammered and form thin sheet is called as, that property is called as malleability. All right. Takes us to the next part of the chapter, that is ductility. Now here you can see that there are wires of metals given to you. Now if you see a wire, now it is always in a wire form. ठीक है, ये जो कुछ substances होते हैं, it is called as ductility. So the ductility is a property of metal by which it can be drawn into wires. All metals show this property, so you can use copper and aluminium wire in your home. So these are a few examples of the metals being molded into wires. You must have seen it, the barbed wires near your house or near your school, so that nobody enters into the premises. Same way you have seen paper pins, and the electrical boards have these kind of wires in them, where on the outer side you will see plastic and on the inner side you will see the metals. Okay? And the metals are not flat in structure, they are in a proper spherical structure. Let's move on to the next property of metals, that is conduction of heat. Now you must have noticed, if you keep something on the gas stove for a long period of time and you try to touch that utensil, you get hurt, right? You get a burning sensation. Now why does this happen? This is because the utensil does allow energy to pass through it. Okay? So the metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. When we keep them on fire, they get heat. Okay, all metals like aluminium, iron, zinc, etc. show this property. So here you can see this handle gets hot and the boy gets hurt on his hand and he gets a burning sensation. Now this is possible only because the metals are good conductors, means metals can pass through heat, light and electricity. So metals are good conductors of electricity and heat. So here these are a few examples of car and the normal electricity wires that you have coming to your houses and the street lights. Let's have a look at a few more examples like the pan, the cooker, the electrical, you can see the wires that are there. This should all fulfill the previous property. So let us understand about the next property of the metal. But before that, there is a question that I would like you all to reflect upon. Now, if you plug the string of a musical instrument like for a veena or a tanpura, or if you just normally just ring bell or hit a steel box with a spoon, metal spoon, you will notice that there is loud sound coming. Whereas if you do the same things with the wooden table that is there, it would not be the same case, right? So there are certain substances like metals which produce a ringing sound. This property is called the sonority of metals. The next and the important one properties of metal is they have luster, means they have shine. So if you see um, a metal which is very shining, what do you say? That it has got luster. Remember that. So let us quickly revise about the physical properties of metals that we learned up till here. It has luster, that means it is shiny. Here they are good conductors of heat and electricity more than themselves. Malleable means it can be drawn into different shapes, and ductile means they can be drawn into wires. High density means the density for this size. Metals are good except for mercury. Let's have a look at some of the uses of metal. Now, in a previous class, you told that there are various utensils which are made up of aluminium. Now, earlier, aluminium was used very much. Nowadays, you have stainless steel utensils in your houses. But remember that metals are a combination of substances that are available, and they form the normal things. Like your utensils is made from what? What are we learning? We are learning about. So let's have a look at another example, and the uses of it is the metals are being used in the wires in order to supply electricity, as we learned that it is a good conductor of heat and electricity. So let's have a look another use of the metal, that is gold and silver coins are used for beautifying ourselves, as they are used as ornaments, and hence it is very important for us to understand about the uses of these elements or these substances that are available around us. Next is the mercury. Now, mercury is used in thermometer. You must have seen the black color line which goes up and down according to your temperature is nothing but a thermometer. So, mercury in thermometers are extremely important in order to check that person. Next is we learned about sodium in common salt, washing powder, baking soda. These are substances which are very harmful if you use it for a long period of time, and hence we are using more of a essential item, or I would say very cheap and easily available, like the detergent and the salt. These are very simple ingredients which are used instead of baking soda. Graphite is one of the metal which is used in pencils for us to write. So we have red phosphorus which is used in matchsticks. It is also used in firecrackers, and it is extremely important for us to understand about the various chemicals and various metals which are there. This helps us to understand about the various substances that are there in the surrounding. So with this we end our session here. In the next coming period we'll learn something new and interesting. Till then, thank you.
If you liked our video, please subscribe to our channel and do not forget to hit the like button.
Hope this session was quite useful to you. In the next coming period, we'll learn something new and interesting. Till then, thank you.